Welcome to Performance Talk with your host, Yul Gordon and Chris Costa, where professionals discuss the latest news and developments in the profession and all areas that affect sports performance, strength and conditioning, nutrition, recovery, performance, and much more. Listen now to your host and this week's guest, next on Performance Talk.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Performance Talk. My name is, of course, Yul Gordon, and we're here today with Mark. Make sure I say it right. Christiani.
Yes, sir.
No.
You got it.
Oh, I got it? All right. Sometimes I will mess up a name, but it's never out of disrespect. I always give it a shot, but I thought I'd go cold turkey on this one and not ask before we got on the air.
And you got it.
All right, good. How are you, Mark? First of all, I hope you're having a good morning. And second of all, tell us a little bit about what you do and how you got started in this field.
Sure. Yeah, I'm doing well this morning. I actually was out with some of the soldiers this morning, taking an ACFT with them. So got a little bit of work in before hopping on. So I work for the Army Holistic Health and Fitness Program, or the H2F system, as it's been dubbed by the military. I work for the Army Reserve component down here in Tampa, Florida. I have the whole region of Florida, pretty much, that I work with Army Reserve soldiers. So about 5,000 or so soldiers can contact me for support. Yeah. Small group.
Yeah. Well, I retired in early 05, late 04. I always get that date mixed up because we're not mixed up, but it felt like 05, but it was actually December 31st or something like that. So that people say, well, did you retire in 04 or did you retire in 05? Well, it's really 04, but felt like 05. Anyway, that program, I am ever since it started way back when. I say way back when because, for me, that was 2000 is when the idea really started to permeate through the military. But ever since it started, I wondered if they were ever going to get to a place where they had professionals, actual strength and conditioning professionals, nested with the units. Seems like we're getting there. It seems like, guys like you are a big part of that. Tell me how you got involved with it.
So I got involved when I was in the military. I was at the 75th Ranger Regiment, 1st Battalion. We had, we had some of the earliest strength and conditioning coaches with special operations that you were talking about. Early 2000s idea came about. It hit the special operations community. So I had a strength coach that worked with me, Phil Fry. And then Justin as well. Believe he's moved up to bigger, better things now. Still within the military community, but they were great strength coaches. I learned a lot from them. I'd come into the military with a kinesiology degree. Getting towards the end of my time, I was asking them, I'm like, hey man, what can I do to do what you do? And their response was, you got to get a master's degree, you got to get out of the Army, and you got to go work in college for a while. So that's what I did. And then go ahead. I was going to say, when the Army H2F program kicked off, I was able to transition from collegiate sports back into coaching for the military, which is what, they kind of got me into and what I wanted to do in the first place.
Now, I'll tell you some of the precursors to what you guys are doing now and how that started. Was back in the, 97, 98, somewhere around there. They were changing the FM 21-20, it was called at the time. So that was the AP, the old APFT, sit-ups, push-ups, run, that thing. So they asked they asked for some feedback on what they were putting out there. So as a commander at the time, I was one of the guys that they asked for. You know how they do, commanders. Hey, give us feedback on this and let us know.
Oh yeah.
Not always do they want feedback. And it's just the way the system is and was and always will be probably. But not always do they want the feedback. They want validation is what it was. So I, having a master's degree in sports medicine and all that jazz and strength and conditioning and with all of that going along and multiple certificates while in the Army still, because I came to the Army with all that stuff. I sent back a 21-page, rebuke of what they were trying to do at the time. Probably not a good idea. I kind of got a little talking to about, proper chain of command and a whole bunch of stuff because, I guess somebody didn't appreciate me saying that. And this is why I'm saying it now. I think at the time they had the wrong people actually trying to change the APFT to get it to where they want it, or where they have it now, which is, I think, is along the right roads. They had doctors and physical therapists and, academics and just people who didn't have performance at the top of their list for, their what they were mandated to do. Physical therapy brings you back to function and they do a great job. All those professions do a great job. Sports medicine, they're in the medical field. They're not really looking at performance and the performance continuum and how that all fits into soldiers, really. And what soldier is a fit soldier? Is it the guy that can run a marathon? Well, yes. Is it the guy that can go all day in the gym? Well, yes. Are they the same soldier? Well, no, because they have two different skill sets, but both of them would be considered fit in any stretch of the imagination, and they have a place with soldiers. I'd say all that to say, in my traditional long-winded manner, I say all that to say, I think now you guys, with a understanding of energy systems, anatomy, and that whole piece that crosses over from therapy or medicine to performance, are on the right track. What are your thoughts? So you've been doing this 10 years?
So I've been with the Army since 2021. That's when so the pilot for H2F started in 2018, and
Right.
the full go kicked off in 2021. Previous to that, I was a collegiate strength and conditioning coach, and then I worked some worksite wellness before I was in the Army.
Okay.
Collectively, about 10 years of human performance experience across 3 different settings.
Well, I will tell you, the more that you bring to the program the Army has built, or the services mostly, I would say have built, is that all those things matter. They are a workforce. There is that performance piece that you get from the strength and conditioning world in college. And then the most important piece you bring to the table is intimate knowledge about the military, and the system and how that works and how sometimes strength and conditioning and staying fit is not always on top of the ladder. So tell the folks that are unfamiliar with how the military operates. How do you deal with the time constraints? Sometimes you got to get training. You have to get, the military training. You have your work day. You have all these things that are competing with that time. So how do you deal with that?
All right. So big way we deal with that is finding the biggest need that the soldiers have and prioritizing that with their time. So like you mentioned, a lot of times soldiers are, being pulled from their protected morning PT time that isn't so protected. They're being
Right.
pulled to go do a UA. They're being pulled to prep for the range. Variety of reasons they might not have
Right.
physical training. So what we've done and what we continue to do is work with individual units at the unit level, figure out what those individual units are most in need of. Let's say they're running very poor times on their ACFT. We might prioritize in our days that we do get them a little bit more of that conditioning piece. Because we have a lot of soldiers that maybe in that unit like to go lift on their own after work. So we don't have to spend as much time on that because they're already getting that in, and vice versa. And then with the Army Reserve side, who I'm working with now, we get them 2 days a month. So
that was my next question. Yeah.
Our priority has really shifted. Army Reserve side, we use those 2 days to teach. I try to, when they're not taking their ACFT test, which they're doing pretty regularly, my priority is to teach the fitness leaders and the unit, the individuals in the unit, how to set up their own exercise program. Or if I give them an exercise program, what the basic movement competencies look like so that they can go execute that in a safe manner without having me next to them to do it.
Okay. What's a normal reserve weekend look like? I mean, we can talk about that in comparison to what, say, a college basketball player's weekend might look like.
Yeah. So reserve weekend's going to look really different. Reserve soldiers are held to the same standard and expectations of a full-time duty active soldier.
Right.
So when they come in for their reserve weekend, they have to do all the administrative tasks that an active soldier would have in a month. That, like, for that whole month, they would have to do all their like annual trainings. They have to prep for the same kind of standard. If they're getting ready for a deployment, they'd have to prep for that same kind of standard, like an NTC or JRTC rotation, just in a very condensed timeline. So you're looking at soldiers getting there around 6:30 a.m. If they have PT, we try to knock that out in an hour quickly so that they can get some training in, they can learn some stuff, and then we can get them doing their job and what they need to accomplish in that 2-day span so that they're not there until 8 p.m. every night. And then throughout the day, I'm available to soldiers. As you know, when you're a lower level enlisted soldier, you might not have as strenuous a schedule as if you're a commander. So I can hit those lower level enlisted soldiers, spend time in the drill hall. We can talk about nutrition, give nutrition briefs and educational briefs. We can talk individual nutrition. They can sit down with me. We can go over their individual exercise program and really work that lowest level. And then the command teams, I do a lot of virtual work with because they probably have a more stable 9-to-5 job outside of their military time. So I can work into their schedule and figure out times we meet virtually. We can talk about their program. We can talk about any challenges they're having, mental performance challenges, nutrition challenges, mostly because that command team's usually a little more senior, little older. They understand what's working for them and what's not working for them. I just need to provide a little bit of support here and there. For your lower level enlisted soldiers or your newer soldiers, I try to provide that maximum support to get them started on the right foot so that when they do get to that senior level command position or that senior level NCO position, they know what to do and they can pass it on to their younger soldiers as well.
You asked or you mentioned something there that was pretty critical, and that was the difference in types of schedules and how that happens. Where I know in the college setting, anyone could argue, well, the basketball schedule is not the same as the football schedule, not the same as the track schedule, but it is a more consistent schedule. And training times remain pretty static, across the year. How do you work through that with, with a military personnel? What I'm trying to work to in the conversation is how different the two things are, but how important it is to both, the college athlete, which I think we all know, college, high school, pro athlete. That's where we see the performance field the most, but performance is critical to soldiers. And so that working across that timepiece, talk a little bit about that.
Yeah. So like you mentioned, college basketball team, you might get them, your scheduled time is 8 a.m. You got them 8 a.m. like 3 times a week. And those days might shift, but it's always going to be those times around their playing schedule. And they're planned out a lot more in advance, right? Like collegiate athlete schedule, their season is set a year in advance.
Right.
We are not set a year in advance. We try to be set a year in advance, but things come up.
But it's set in water.
Yeah, exactly. Like very literally in Florida, when a hurricane might knock out your
Yeah, exactly.
your drill weekend.
Exactly.
So we have to be a lot more flexible. Like I have to understand that on the individual level, I can do a lot of work with individuals, and I have to be flexible around their schedule. And it's just a matter of being understanding and not being set in a way. Like when I work with individuals, I don't always have to squat on the first day, run on the second day, power movements or
Right.
like cleans on the third.
Right.
You've got to be flexible because you might have a soldier 3 days, 1 week that wants to see you, and then you might have a soldier 1 day the next week that wants to see you or that can come and see you. Or with a reserve unit, you might have them like the reserve unit I'm with this weekend, they do 4 days in a row instead of 2. So they're here for 4 days, but then they're off. They were off last month. So now I've just got to adjust plan, work around their schedule. And then they have ACFT, their Army testing on some of those days. So again, you just got to work around that schedule. And in those times, you can really start tailoring things towards individuals. We take that the individual that's struggling the most, and we start making individualized programs. We do individualized follow-ups for them. Instead of thinking that mass group, you start to boil things down to the individual level where you have a little bit more control. But it's very different than the college setting. You have to be super flexible, and you have to understand that like if you write out a year program, they're not going to do it. Like it's just not going to happen.
Right,
so it's better to teach them. Like I've heard you talk about training IQ versus training, like time and training. You got to build that training IQ. Yeah, training age. Yep. You got to build that training IQ. Because if someone knows what to do, they know that they have to they know that they want to get better at their run, and they know that entails, all right, we're going to run some intervals. We're going to increase our volume slowly, like 10% per week until I get to the designated like run time and volume that I'm looking for. You can teach someone to do that, and you can raise their training IQ, and then they can start to do it on their own. And with 6,000 soldiers, like 6,000 soldiers, like thousands of soldiers, everybody I can raise their training IQ and they hit me up for like little things is better than individuals who need like hours of my time. Then I can hit more people and I can make more of an impact on the force as a whole.
Not a lot of, in the traditional settings in strength and conditioning, we don't talk about training IQ enough in my, estimation, or in my world anyway. Because when you're trying to make performance gains in any setting, the training IQ is really important, because if they don't understand, they don't know why they're doing something, you're gonna have a hard time getting that all important buy-in. If a guy, wants to do more push-ups, doesn't understand that doing push-ups will help you do more push-ups, and he just wants to lift and get stronger, and then that way he'll do more push-ups. Well, you got to kind of execute the exercise a little bit more often as well. And that's a piece you got to understand, time away from their drill or their reserve status time or their reserved weekends or periods. That time is more important for them than the time that they're there. So the more you can teach them, the better off they're going to be, but then they have to go execute that. So then you get into training age. How long have you been training? What's that progress look like over time? And you get those guys, you might get them, twice, this month, and then they miss you next month, even though they're there for their reserve status. They have something else they're doing. So you don't see them again for 2 more months. So that's 5 months in between or 4 months in between. So training IQ, training age, is training age going to go up real far at that point? No, because their experience is still whatever their experience is. But their training IQ could go up quite a bit in understanding why they're doing things. So let's talk about the group that you work with in the program that the Army has been going now for what, 6 years? Yeah, 7 years?
Yeah,
Somewhere
about
around there.
there. Yeah.
I know that it, when I talked to some guys about it right at the beginning, they were concerned that, it was just going to be the responsibility of the strength coach to do a whole massive load of stuff. Now I understand that there's more of a multidisciplinary team that you guys work with. Is what is that like? Is it nutritionists, psychologists, PTs, doctors? You got your unit coaches and all that. How's that work out?
Yeah. So on the active side, where I was before I joined the reserve side, on the active side, we had dietitians, physical therapists, athletic trainers, which is a sore subject right now.
Yeah, I got you.
Strength and conditioning coaches. Yeah, we had unit PT leaders. We had occupational therapists. We had mental performance coaches. And we had a good relationship with the PAs that ran the clinics so that we could help with the musculoskeletal injuries. And it was a team. Like, we had what you describe as a sports medicine team. And everyone had their role. And the strength and conditioning coaches' roles, where I worked, it's just the 44th Med Brigade. Our primary role was to work with the unit fitness leaders to make them competent leaders and good to be able to stand up in front of a group and coach them, and to provide the program for the units. So we had the experts on the back end provide the program, and the unit fitness leaders ran the program. And they would, as they gained that training IQ, they would make small modifications. They would see individuals that maybe need, some regressions, progressions, but the coaches were there step by step, kind of holding their hand, helping them until they became self-sufficient. And then being the coaches were the people that were the primary subject matter experts that were with the units day to day. So then we could refer people to, our athletic trainers, our physical therapists. We see someone who's limping. It's like, hey man, what's going on? They might tell us what's going on, and then we can get them to the appropriate individual to help them. So there was a lot put on the strength and conditioning coaches, but it wasn't too much, if that makes sense. It was very within our scope of practice, and it's a really good environment. In the reserve side, we don't have that yet. We only have 4 strength and conditioning coaches across small little areas in the reserves. It's more of a pilot right now to see how it's working out. There's some plans to get dietitians to help out. But right now, it's very performance-based, and just being one individual with so many soldiers, it's triage.
So you have to be all of those. You have to be all of those people.
Yeah. And the nice thing is, I was going to say, the nice thing is, so the company that I work for, so I'm contracted for the military through O2X Human Performance. We have dietitians. We have an education team. We have sleep experts on the back end that I can reach out to, because I'm not an expert in all those things, but I can reach out to those individuals. Yeah. But I reach out to a sleep expert, and she can walk me through a little PowerPoint presentation or some handouts that I can give to the soldiers so that I learn the information, the good information to give to them. And that's just something that our company offers. That's really cool. And it's one of the reasons I think the reserves kind of went the direction of a human performance company, whereas the Army went the direction of a staffing company to just get the people in the seats and then let them execute.
Right. Yeah, I can kind of see how that's a little bit different. Yeah, that's actually pretty interesting. I did not know that. That's a good piece of information. The reserves are using performance companies, and the active duty units are using, basically they just hire a guy.
Yeah.
Let me rephrase that, because I'm just saying that I'm saying that for the difference between the two entities or types of entities, and not saying that the strength conditioning coach or personnel that they hire are just guys. Because there's some great strength conditioning coaches and professionals doing that work right now, and I wanted to make sure. I know a lot of them listen. I wanted to make sure that they didn't think that they were just a guy. That's not true, but not true in that way. But it is true from a hiring perspective. They're hiring onesies and twosies, and the reserves are hiring companies. Let's move on to talk a little bit about, hopefully for our audience, as I jump all over the place here, hopefully for our listeners, that they got from this piece of our conversation that, it's a big apparatus. The services are large groups, and you can't just say, hey, I want X, and go out and get it, stick it in, and it works. There's a lot of work and preparation that goes in before you roll that kind of thing out. So did you get in on the rollout, come in slightly after the rollout, or I know you were involved before, but with the actual program?
So I came in, I was a day one coach for the initial rollout, the large rollout,
Okay.
like in 2021 at Fort Bragg with the 44th Med Brigade there. So we were on the ground. We saw the rollout. We got to experience the show up day one, tell everyone your strength coaches are here, and a bunch of soldiers look at you and they're like, what's a strength coach?
Yeah, what's a strength coach, and why are you here? And I already know how to do a push-up.
Yep.
I can do a pull-up. So that we talk about transition from the collegiate world a lot. We talk about transition straight from college for young professionals, but talk to the listeners about how that felt for you, being transitioning straight from being a soldier into the college strength and conditioning world. And then all of a sudden you're back with soldiers, and it kind of, I know it kind of felt like, okay, on one hand, I'm home. On the other hand, I thought I was going to do something different.
Yeah. So transitioning from being a soldier to a collegiate coach was honestly great. I loved it because collegiate coaches are on a very set schedule. It's pretty regimented. It's really an easy transition. You show up the right place, right time, right uniform. You do what you're supposed to do.
Right.
You put in the extra work, and everything is very like scheduled out, regimented. You know everything months in advance. I was like, that was a natural transition. Then I transitioned from collegiate with this very scheduled, like built life to the military setting where I thought I was going to continue that very scheduled built life.
Right.
PT in the morning,
Right.
PT in the afternoon, and it wasn't like that at all. I would say the first 6 months we spent doing people skills. Like we were talking to commanders, we were talking to soldiers, we were building relationships and trust with the soldiers. And then they started really reaching out and they're like, yeah, we want to use you for PT in the morning. Yeah, like let's get an afternoon, like lunchtime PT group set up. Yeah, let's get one of our coaches started an Olympic lifting group because like we had a few soldiers that expressed interest. But that took time to build. And yeah, it was a little shock to the system, but it was good. I enjoyed it. Definitely being prior service was helpful. Being able to relate to the soldiers, knowing what they're going through when, when a soldier's complaining about their first sergeant or a soldier's having a hard time with something, we can sit down and just be that sounding board for them to talk to. And we're not in their chain of command, and we can build that relationship.
It doesn't matter what world you're in as a strength coach, strength conditioning coach, performance coach, whatever we call ourselves at whatever institution we're working, you always become a sounding board. It's that, and those people skills are critical in coaching, period. But I found that with strength coaches and performance people like that, a lot of times the reason we become that sounding board is because they're in a relaxed atmosphere. We're not in the chain of command, or so to speak, or whatever the coaching tree or whatever it may be. And then on top of that, it's such an informal formal setting, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
There's for the military, you don't have to salute me. You can call me, Mister. You can call me Doctor if I have a title. You can call me by my first name, last name. You can call me any name if you want to, if it's that kind of day. And for us, it's incumbent to be able to absorb all of that and then still get the athlete soldier to want to perform.
Yes.
So when you're talking about soft skills or people skills, that strikes a chord. We talk about those a little bit here on the show a lot. So talk about your first experience and how it differs from, just going into the college setting and getting buy-in and going back into the military setting, although we know that you had an advantage because you came from there.
Yeah, definitely. College setting, there's an inherent level of trust because the head coach is charging you, or the strength and conditioning coach, with improving the performance of his players. And those players have an inherent trust of you because you're in the collegiate system that they have chosen to go to. So I felt like there was already some level of trust. The collegiate setting really responded well, in my experience anyway, responded well to like, hey, I've coached at this place, I've coached at this place, and this is my like education background. The student athletes were like, all right, cool. Like, we got you, right? If you came and told this soldier, like, I have a master's degree and this is why you should trust me, they'd look at you and be like, well, I've been exercising for 20 years, so why should I trust you? So a lot of the stuff with the soldiers, building that trust was, like you talked about, being that sounding board, but also doing it with them. Like, soldiers really respond well to do it with us. So I had the opportunity right when I started, people found out that I used to be a soldier. They're like, come on this 6-mile ruck with us. They fully expected me to say no. I grabbed a backpack, threw a 25-pound weight in it, strapped up, and was like, let's go.
Okay. Yeah. There you
but
go.
then, the next day, you got soldiers reaching out. They're like, oh, hey, you did that ruck with us. Like, you want to come back for PT the next day? Or like, hey, can you help us out? Can you write a PT session for us? So building that buy-in really came from like just being on the ground with them. And you can't do that in college, man. You can't jump into a lift with a bunch of college guys, like the basketball team, and be like, I'm going to do the lift with you. They're like, no, you're supposed to coach us.
Yeah, like get out of the way.
Yeah, but
yeah,
it was good. It was fun, and I think it's something a lot of collegiate to military coaches didn't understand at first. That you build some trust just by doing it with them, like taking ACFT with them.
They're very much, visually oriented as a soldier. Okay, you're asking me to do this stuff. Let me see if you can do it. Or at least show me a strong enough background that you've done it before and you know what I'm feeling when I have to put on a 40-pound ruck and go, 12, 16, 24 miles, whatever we're doing that weekend. Let me know that you understand what I'm doing or what you're trying to train me to accomplish. I know for me, because I when I was working with between, 2008 and 2014, 15, I worked with a lot of soldiers. I was in South Carolina at the time.
Right.
But so I worked with a lot of soldiers, and I had some connection to the bases around the area, and so it was one of those deals where okay, you retired. What branch were you? I was infantry, and they're like, okay, so you know what we got coming up then. I said, yeah, I've been on enough road marches to know what you're going to go through and what you need to do to get there. Am I going to do this one with you? No, I'm not doing it. Will I be there? Yes. And sometimes it was the case where we went out and we were on a mile track and I would do 3 or 4 miles with them, you know, but I wouldn't do the whole thing. Man, I was too broke up. That's why I retired. I was too busted up to try to do those things all the time. But the point was, they did appreciate it. You know what I mean? And it was, you got that buy-in, um, that sometimes I think people don't really understand soldiers till you've either been around them long enough, or you have put your name on the piece of paper and gone through basic training and done those things. Then you start to get an understanding of what you're asking them to do. All right. A lot of that. This is. I'm jumping all over the place, so you have to excuse me a little bit. But whenever I get one of you guys on, it's not outside of what we do. It's new, still new to the strength and conditioning world, the tactical piece, the tactical strength conditioning. So there's a lot of things we're learning. What's different from training in that realm as opposed to and bringing a young person along, an 18, 19-year-old, as opposed to you getting an 18, 19-year-old athlete and you got 4 years to work with them to try to bring them along.
Yeah. So you got athletes where their primary concern is getting better at their sport. And
Okay.
each sport, you do your needs analysis and kind of figure out what are the primary characteristics I have to get better at for this sport. In the
Right.
tactical setting, they're just told be ready 100% of the time, all the time, and be good at everything. So it's like,
Yeah, you don't
all
have any
right.
excuses.
So
Gotcha.
in terms of long-term athletic development, where a football player, we're worried about, getting faster, maybe putting on some size, getting a little bit stronger, some anaerobic conditioning. For a soldier, we're thinking long-term GPP development, because we're going to have
Okay.
them from, if they're starting at 18, let's say they have a 5-year contract, we know they're getting them for 5 years at least. The ideal is to have them for a full 20-year career. We have 20 years to build and sustain levels of athletic ability. So we got a long time. There's no need to rush anybody along. Take it nice and slow. And we got to keep them same as athletics, very similar to athletics. Availability is your number one asset. If you're
Right.
injured, you're not super useful to your unit because you're not deployable. Just like if you're an injured
Right.
basketball player or football player, you can't get out and play on the team. So, your weight room days might be great, but it's not really useful if you're not available. So our goal is similar to athletics, keep them available and think long-term athletic development, and conditioning is the thing for us. People try to compare soldiers to football players. I always try to compare soldiers a little bit more to cross-country runners who lift some weights. Because conditioning wise, they're asked to do so much for their job. Just long sustained efforts. Just even think about putting up one of the units I'm working with now, they're putting up a field hospital tent. This tent takes hours to put up. That is sustained endurance. So I want you to be strong, but I also want you to have that long-term endurance. Endurance, cardiovascular capacity, these are things that we can develop long-term over time for these soldiers by starting nice and slow, gradually increasing them, give them some skills, and then hopefully when they hit that kind of 10-year, mid-time point, we're at peak condition, we're at peak athletic ability, and we're trying to sustain that while not getting injured on the tail end of their career. So I work with a lot of older soldiers too. Yeah, a lot of older soldiers who have been in the reserves for 20 plus years. And then our idea kind of shifts, right? Our idea shifts to what do we need to do to make you feel good and stay available, feel healthy. You're already going to pass the minimums on your test. That's not a problem.
Right.
We want you to be healthy, feel good, and set you up for life after the military as well.
Yeah, how to take care of yourself long term.
Yep.
And I was thinking about which athletes, closely or more closely relate to being a soldier, and specifically a combat arms soldier, triathletes maybe.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
What's the other the sport? Man, I can't think of it. World's greatest athlete. You know what I'm talking about.
Oh, like
Guys
cross.
in track and field.
Oh, the decathlon kind of stuff. Yeah, yeah,
The
yeah.
decathlon guys
Decathlon. Yeah,
where you have to do strength stuff because you're going to throw the shot put. And you have to be able to jump, so that's explosive stuff. You got your your 1,600-meter run, and so they do and then they're jumping some, they're pole vaulting, so they do a variety of things, and I closely relate those types of athletes to the needs of soldiers
yeah. That's perfect. Yeah,
and service
decathlete is
members.
perfect.
So you look at a decathlete and the way they're built. They may be able to high jump, but not necessarily built like a normal high jumper. Um, so they come in all shapes and sizes, do decathletes. So yeah, that's one of those interesting points where, you're looking over a 10-year span, and provided everything goes pretty generally for soldiers, you can stay in 10 years. You can be in longer than that. So that being not only physically fit and ready to go, but being healthy and learning how to take care of yourself to maintain that level of health and fitness, um, goes back again to what you brought up, the education piece, that piece where you're talking to them about not just, what was your 1 rep max, last week, so we can adjust your load. Um, it's like, okay, you're not 25 anymore, you're 36. Let's do something different. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
exactly.
Let's try something different. Let's man, shoot. Okay, I'm jumping again. Um, if you're talking to new soldiers, um, that just got in the service, they're not the unit, but just got in the service. How is that different from, how's bringing them along different from you're talking to a 10-year guy who, has a weight training program that he's been doing for a while, doesn't really think he needs your help, but does get information from you, those kind of things.
Yeah. So in this position, that 10-year guy that maybe has a good program, that's not injured, that maybe gets advice from me every once in a while. I love that. I'm not going to mess with them very much. Like you said, I might
Okay.
give them some advice here and there, but I'm always available in case they want to try something new. And as time builds up, you give them some good advice, things start working, they might come to you more often. But that
Right.
new soldier, I'm going to want to get my hands on that new soldier right away and get them on a good kind of exercise program so they can build some consistency. And
Okay.
with that, because I want them to be that 10-year soldier who is not injured, who has a good program, who understands what they're doing, and is staying healthy. So I want to get those soldiers early, and I want to teach them, one, how to set up a basic, like, get faster at your 2 mile or be able to run 2 miles consistently, which is their like
Yeah.
baseline for their test. And then I want to teach them basic squat pattern, hinge pattern, press
Yes.
patterns,
Yes.
pull
Yes.
patterns.
Yes.
And some of these people come in and they're like, yo, I played football for 4 years. I had a good strength and conditioning coach. And they breeze through it, right? They're like, I got it. And it's like, all right, cool. You've already built consistency. Now what I want to do is probably throttle you back because you're thinking this is still like football team. And you're
Right.
going to go super hard and you're 18. So everything feels good. But
Yep.
I'm going to try to pull you back a
Now.
little bit. Yeah, now. And then then weirdly, we do get a fair amount of individuals now that come into the military with no athletic background. The first time they worked out is day one of basic training, or
Yeah.
maybe a few days leading up to it. And for those individuals, it's teaching them just to move appropriately, uh, teaching them where their body is in space, teaching them how to run. I mean, like how many soldiers I've met that are like, I didn't run until I was in the Army. And it's like, well, I can tell like your hips are doing something real strange
Yeah.
right now. Like,
Yeah. I don't even know what that is you're doing.
yeah, like it's
It's not running,
interesting.
but okay.
Yeah.
No,
So
I
like
get it. I get it.
the basics, right? Like, and you take an individual like that who's young, that's willing to learn, a few hours, maybe in a battle assembly weekend, in 2 hours, you can drastically improve how they run. And
Yeah.
as long as they're doing it on their own, they're going to feel better. And you can actually make a lifelong difference in them just with a few tweaks. You save their hips, save their ankles, save their knee, something, but just some
Yes.
minor changes.
Yeah, I noticed you talked about, and I'm happy you brought it up because it's one thing I think in the services and even with this program, a lot of things that we do, especially in the combat arms, are counter to good movement. You know what I mean? So,
Absolutely.
one of the things I used to work with, um, especially young soldiers on was posture. Your posture and your body alignment. Okay, we make you stand a certain way for when you're in formation and you have to come to the position of attention or you're at parade rest. That doesn't mean you have to do things where your body's out of alignment for long periods or repetitively for short periods. You can still have good body alignment and good posture even though you're doing those things. And here's how you do them, because those things start when I get on this movement thing. I always start there because if I see how you stand, your position of your hips when you're just standing around, position of your feet, where is your head pushed forward or pushed forward, or your shoulders humped. When I see all that stuff, I say that's the way you're going to try to move. At the very least, you're going to try to move from that position when you're stationary into an explosive movement, or even a regular, more sustained movement. Either way you look at it, you're starting from a bad movement position. So if you at least pay attention to your posture, for some of you, body alignment, then we can start there. But I'll tell you what I've seen one time. I was working with a young man, and I put my hand on my head like this because every time I think about it, I go, I still don't know how he was doing that. But I said, okay, we got to get better at running. You expressed um, a need, and this was a young soldier. I said, you expressed the need to want to do your APFT better and just generally be faster and feel good about how you run. I said, so first thing I got to see is, how are you running? So go ahead and take a lap around the track. This kid took off and he was running same arm, same leg. The normal opposite arm and leg. No, the normal opposite arm and leg movement. He was doing it same arm, same leg. And as he was going around the track, I was standing over there and I was observing, but I was also trying to figure out how you do that and make it feel like it's the right way. So those are some of the instances. That's an extreme instance in, somebody who's just, like you said, didn't run, didn't do any exercise or anything like that till they got in the service. But those are the ones where if you catch them, you make a big difference. But I have digressed. What we talked about here is teaching those young guys is consistency and persistency. The consistency you can help with. How do you get into that mental side and help them be more persistent from your perspective?
Yeah. So I spend a lot of time talking to them about their like reason why, what motivates them. And 90%
Okay.
of the time, it is not like to get fitter for the military. They have some other reason that they want. Um, I have no problem playing on people's vanity. Like people like to look good. And if you
Hey,
tell, you got a
whatever
soldier who's
works.
like, yeah, right. And turns out if you run a little bit, you lift some weights and you're in generally good shape, you tend to look a little better.
Little
But I
better,
have
little
soldiers,
better.
yeah,
Yep.
yeah. Yeah, they ask me, for programs to look better. They ask for programs. I get a lot of like, I'd like my shoulder to stop hurting. I'd like my back to stop hurting program, things like that.
Right.
And so we work around movement technique stuff. We work around posture, and then we build a program for that individual. Kind of, I'll tell them it's more for their individual like need. But if I want your back to feel a little better, we're gonna load you a little bit. We're probably gonna
Right.
have some form of a deadlift in there. We're gonna do some stability exercises. Um, and it's gonna be a pretty well-rounded program, and that's gonna make your back feel better, hopefully, barring some like
Yeah.
incident or some injury that's happened before, but like unspecified low back pain. Generally find that, lift a little bit of weight, correct some
Yeah.
posture
Get
things.
stronger.
Yeah,
Yeah.
usually helps out. Um, so like it's really getting in there with the soldiers, spending time with them and talking to them and figuring out what they're looking for. I mean, I had one soldier, I gave her a calendar. She was just like, I'm not inconsistent. I don't know what to do. We tried working on a program before. It didn't go very well through our athlete management system. So I just gave her a printed out calendar. And I was like, you're a teacher, right? She's like, yeah. I'm like, every time you do a day, I want you to put a sticker on the day. And she's like, oh, like the kids do at school. It's like, yeah. A month later, she comes back to me and she's like, that worked perfectly. That was my motivation. Like I did every single day. Like,
Got to get my sticker.
yeah, got to get my sticker. So like building the consistency and persistency, you just got to spend time with individuals. And I will say, like, unfortunately, there's only one of me and there are tons of soldiers that I work with.
That I was going down that realm next. Is is it just you, or do you have like your team?
So we have a team of 4 coaches. One's in Nashville, one's in Charlotte, one's in Columbia, South Carolina, and then I'm here in Tampa, Florida. So we're a team, but we're not really touching each other's regions at all.
Yeah, geographically, you're not. I mean,
No.
you're a team for the conference.
Yeah. But we are,
and I'm sure between you guys, you're in constant communication and stuff like that. So
yeah. We work with each other. We communicate. We pass people off to each other. Like some of our TPU soldiers, our temporary soldiers, some of mine might live in Nashville, and some of the guys in Nashville, his soldiers might live in Tampa, and they travel for their
Right.
battle assembly to their units. So we pass those soldiers off and make sure they're getting the services they're looking for. But
Okay.
we are. There are not very many of us. There are a lot of soldiers, and we really try to prioritize the ones that need us the most, and then the ones that want our help.
Yeah,
So, like,
I can see that. That's while I think the services are on the right track, and specifically, my heart's close to what the Army does, because that's the service that I was in. But we always tend to ask our leaders to do a lot more with a lot less time, a lot less, a lot fewer resources. Um, and I think that the reason we are still the best military, the best army in the world, is because we can, and we do, and soldiers respond to that. Uh, but one of the things I think we should probably get away from a little bit is asking folks like yourself to do more with less, because it's so important. Let's put the foundation back under the soldier. That means give them the resources uh, to be good. Now, if I have you in my unit and nobody under my direct supervision uses you, but we're not passing the APFT, then that's a whole nother problem. Because we're not using the resources we have. But let's go ahead and talk about those resources. What do you have access to that you can use to do your job, and uniquely from the reserve setting? Is there like a facility at the base? Is that, what is it like?
yeah. So I'm stationed at a reserve center in Pinellas Park, Florida. We do have we have a facility. We have a gym out back. pretty basic setup, some barbells, weirdly no squat racks, bunch of bench racks, like bench only stations.
Okay.
But we got dumbbells.
Bench press, you got to
Yeah.
get it in.
Yeah. We've got plenty of sleds. We've got kettlebells. Yeah, I said dumbbells. We have a large mat open area for mobility drills. It's a large combatives mat, but I use it for a lot of mobility drills.
Okay.
We have bikes. We have rowers. We have plenty of stuff to get a good workout in. So I have access to that, and I can do one-on-one sessions there. I do small group sessions every day that I'm in with the soldiers that are the full-time soldiers. And then soldiers, they're the units that are in local to the area, they use the facility here.
Okay.
The other reserve centers, not a lot of reserve centers have a lot, but they do have ACFT equipment. So they have kettlebells, they have trap bars, they have weights, they have medicine balls. So they can use those items, and we can develop programs with those. It's plenty to get going on. And then from a outreach perspective, our company has the O2X Human Performance app. It's an athlete management system that we can use to get programming to soldiers. Yep, programming. We have diet stuff on there. We have nutrition help on there, a lot of healthy recipes.
Okay.
And then we have breathing exercise and mental performance side of that as well. But that helps our reach a lot too, because I can put a soldier in Jacksonville who is outside my travel radius on that app. We can be in communication. I can get them set up with a program. There's videos on how to do all the exercises, and I can help them along because I have the communication and ability to communicate through our athlete management system.
Okay, for our audience and our listeners who may not know, tell them what the ACFT, what that acronym stands for.
Okay, so the ACFT is the Army Combat Fitness Test. It consists of 6 events. It is this 3-rep max hex bar or trap bar deadlift, an overhead standing power throw where you throw a med ball over your head backwards for distance. There's push-ups, the hand release push-ups. So your chest is going to touch the ground, hands come off to the side. Then it's the sprint drag carry, which is an anaerobic event consisting of sprinting, sled drag, side shuffles, kettlebell carries, and a little bit more sprinting, and then a 2-mile run. That test did change like this week. It is going to the AFT come June. They're getting rid of the ball throw. That ball throws out. Okay. So it's going to be a 5-event test. And the combat arms soldiers that we were talking about earlier, combat arms will have different standards. They will have a gender neutral standard, and they're adjusting the standards a little for combat arms, making it a little bit tougher of a test.
Okay.
But the events are going to stay the same. So the Army has done a really good job of incorporating some strength into their testing, some endurance into their testing. I think I forgot the plank. The plank's in there. You got a plank for like 3 minutes. But they've got some endurance. Yeah. They got rid of the sit-ups. No more sit-ups. So we've got some strength events. We got some endurance events.
That's probably a good thing.
Yeah, it's not a bad thing.
Yeah. It's okay. So they're changing it around a little bit. I've always questioned the 2-mile run and what we were trying to accomplish with that. And could it be more accomplished with 1.5-mile run?
Yeah, I would concur on that one. I think it could be.
Okay. I was never a runner, so anything to shorten the run, but more importantly, that's just me personally. But more importantly, what are we measuring?
Yeah.
That was always my question. What are we trying to measure? And every time I got an answer back, I said, but that's not what it measures. That's not what you're not getting an indication of that type of fitness. Well, we want to be more aerobically fit. Well, you can get that from multiple things.
Yeah.
And there's a whole lot better ways to test it. But anyway, that's just, me talking and my preference and with my experience working with athletes and being with and around soldiers and other service members. But no, it's come a long way. And as you can tell from our thing, every now and again we have you guys on, and we like to talk about it because it's important in the strength world to understand that it stretches across a vast and a large quantity of just people. It's not just in sports. Physical performance goes across the board in a lot of occupations and a lot of things. And that's evident if you're a service member. All right. Dang. This always happens to me. I get to talking with folks, and the time just goes, and it kind of flies by. But let's talk. Let's talk about a little bit about what you're looking forward to as far as the life of a strength coach, and where you would like to take what you're doing.
Yeah, so I love working with the military. It's kind of the background I came from. My dad was in the military. I was in the military.
Right.
I love working with the military. My hope is that the program continues to grow and that we can get these services out to more and more soldiers. Would love to see like 3 strength coaches in Florida instead of just me, so we can
Right.
get a little more reach, like northern part and southern part of Florida.
And for self-preservation, let's be real.
Yeah, yeah,
You know,
absolutely.
you can't work every day, all day. I'm
Yeah,
just kidding.
my wife would my wife would agree with you.
Yeah, I got you.
But yeah, as a strength coach, like I personally, like my strength coach goal, I just want to help anybody who wants to get into this tactical field as much as possible, and then learn from guys like yourself who've been doing this a lot longer than I have. Um, I mean, plenty of people reach out to me on LinkedIn, ask about working in the tactical field. Um, I'm always willing to talk. I'll throw you my phone number. We can set up a time. We can talk about it. We can talk more about an individual's goals. I love helping people find their passion and find strength and conditioning. I think it's a great field. I think it fits a lot of former soldiers, retired soldiers. I think it fits their personality, mentality. So if anyone wants to like talk about that, reach out to me. They can find me, on LinkedIn or, on the internet. I don't know. Just search Mark Christiani, see what pops up. But,
You pop up. Here's the deal, man. I appreciate what you're doing. I appreciate your background. I appreciate and thank you for serving our country. I think that in the world of strength and conditioning, performance, coaching, it's the calling is very similar to being a strength coach or vice versa, because you have to care first. You have to really care about what you're doing. And then you have to be service oriented. There's no time and no room for a me oriented person. You have to want to give to somebody else. You can't do your job unless you want to give, and you care about what you're doing, because it's going to come out bad if you don't care.
Absolutely.
Anyway, hey, I appreciate you coming on with us. I've enjoyed this conversation. I purposely try to keep us around this time frame when we stop. One reason is so that we can invite you back and talk about some more stuff later, and we don't try to get it all in at once. The second thing is, it's enjoyable, but realizing that all coaches, strength coaches in the service, with the service or not, your time is valuable. So I appreciate you. Thanks for answering the call, both to come on and to serve. And you have any final words for us?
Uh, no, I really appreciate you having me on. Love talking to people. Love talking to coaches who are smarter and wiser than I am. I think
I don't know
that's.
about all that, but not for me anyway. I'm trying to get from you.
Hey man, I'm trying to get as much from you as you are from me. Like I love learning from people. My final words would just be like, if you are a coach, never stop learning, never stop growing, and if you want to be a coach, spend as much time as you can learning and growing, and it'll happen.
I like it. I like it. Ladies and gentlemen, this has been Performance Talk. Our guest today has been Mark Christiani. Great talk, Mark. Appreciate
Great talking. Thank you. Thank you for having me.